Let me go to Governor Sarah Palin. Hello, how are you, Governor?
I'm doing great. How are you, Glenn?
Very good. If I call you Sarah, please don't take offense to it. I feel it's the strangest thing with you, and I know my listeners feel the same way. You're just like one of us.
Well,
so,
if you let me call you Glenn, I let you call me Sarah. I would just be comfortable with that.
All right. First of all, are you clinging to either your God or guns currently right now?
No gun in my hand at this moment, but my God, yes.
All right. Good. I have to tell you, I'm so glad to have you on the broadcast. We spoke before they picked you, and I've been saying for a long time that you're exactly the kind of person that we're looking for. I think you, in many ways, at least for me, you represent hope that there is somebody out there that is normal, that hasn't overthought everything, that is not caught in this awful trap of, quite honestly, if you don't mind, let me just ask you this. Mm-hmm. At any time did you say to the handlers, just shut up and let me be me?
Oh, that's all that inside baseball stuff that, hey, we're in these last 2 weeks, we're going to do all that we can to get this message out there to American voters, letting them know what the choices are on November 4th. The choice is so clear, the contrast quite stark. So anything and everything I can do to get that message out, I'm going to do it.
I don't know how what happened to us, Sarah, where you have a country that is willing to embrace socialism. Are we not embracing socialism with Barack Obama?
Maybe some voters have not realized what socialism entails, and maybe young people brought up in under some of the curriculum in the schools are not quite aware that any hint at socialism really will punish productivity and hard work ethic and reward for that tough work. Maybe just some voters aren't quite aware of where some of Barack Obama's, quote, tax cut programs could lead us, and it is a dangerous thing for our economy and for our country to be considering, though. We cannot flirt with this, and now is not the time to experiment with, as Joe the plumber calls it, socialism.
I have to tell you, I'm surprised that nobody has taken up the mantle, especially after you in the debate. I watched the debate, and I saw the polling numbers, the dial testing as you were going, and you started down this road that every single one of the politicians are saying, oh, well, these big evil people on Wall Street and these evil rich people that were duping people. But then you started in on, which I never heard, and I actually cheered, it's time for some personal responsibility. It is time for people to take on the responsibility that they have for themselves. Why don't we talk about personal responsibility anymore? Why don't we reach out to the American people and say, hey, government is not the answer. 9 out of 10 times, government's the problem.
I know. Let us preach it, because it's reaching people when they know that there is a candidate willing to talk about this. McCain talks about it too, though, and in our rallies we talk about this, saying that, no, bigger government is the problem, it's not the solution, and we've put government back on the side of the people in the state of Alaska by taking on corporate interests and taking on agendas that were all about self-dealing of politicians, putting government back on the side of the people, but still reminding Alaskans anyway that government is not the answer. It is the problem, and government can play an appropriate role in all the challenges, all the issues that we're dealing with today. But man, government's got to get out of the way of the private sector and our families, their abilities and opportunities to grow and thrive and prosper. And you do that federal level, especially by cutting taxes so that our small businesses and families can keep more of what they earn and produce, and then reprioritize according to what they deem necessary and reinvest those dollars there instead of letting a politician do it for them. There's an appropriate role for government in meeting all the challenges that we face, but government is not the be-all, end-all.
This is a Joe Biden gotcha question. I'll just see if you're qualified to be Vice President of the United States. How many letters in the words jobs?
Well, we got 3 letters in the word job, and more importantly, 4 letters in jobs. And that's what we have to do, Glenn, is create jobs. You do that by letting our businesses keep more of what they earn and produce. That allows them to be able to afford more employees. That's how you get the economy back on track. That's just common sense stuff. Common sense conservatism.
What about the 95% of all Americans are going to get a tax cut? I mean, how do you get the message across to people that 40% of Americans don't pay taxes? And Barack Obama is saying, well, they pay Social Security tax. Well, so we're going to cut Social Security tax when Social Security's in a crapper? And that's not really income tax then that we're talking about, is it?
See, Glenn, people have got to hear his words. Don't just be there at these rallies or anything else. Listening to what he's saying, you have to really, really hear what he is saying. Barack Obama claims that he'll cut income taxes for 95% of Americans. The problem is more than 40% pay no income taxes at all. So how do you cut income taxes for folks who don't pay them? What he's going to do is write him a check and call that a tax cut, even though it's really a tax credit. Where's he going to get all the money for all those checks? By raising taxes on America's families and on our small businesses and folks just like Joe the plumber. And Barack Obama is playing with words to hide his real agenda of redistributing the hard-earned money of American families. And, you got to hand it to Joe the plumber in Toledo. He's the one who succeeded in finally getting Barack Obama to, in plain speak, explain what his intentions are for these quote-unquote tax cuts.
Are you for this new stimulus package?
I say, when is enough of taxpayer dollars being thrown into this bill out there? There's some points in it that make sense, some provisions in there that make sense, but how far are we going to go here in asking taxpayers to bail out even further entities, individuals, those who have made some poor decisions, and then being able to kind of sit back and rely on others to prop them up and bail them out. This next one of the Democrats being proposed should be very, very concerning to all Americans, because to me it sends a message that $700 billion bailout, maybe that was just the tip of the iceberg. No, we were told, and we've got to be believing if we have enough elected officials who are going to be standing strong on fiscal conservative principles and free enterprise, and we have to believe that there are enough of those elected officials to say, no, okay, that's enough. We can use what we've already seen approved by Congress and better use those funds even than how it's been laid out via the priorities that some in Congress want to see the $700 billion spent. But when is enough enough?
Barack Obama's running mate Joe Biden said yesterday that we're going to be tested with an international crisis in the next 6 months. He said that they're going to have to make some decisions that are going to seem wrong to the average person at first. Did you read this speech? He said that he was going to that the decisions were going to seem wrong to the average American person in the first in those 6 months, and he was going to need people just to blindly stand by Barack Obama and Joe Biden and support those decisions because they would know better.
Okay, Glenn, I think that out of all the bizarre claims and proclamations in this entire campaign of Obama's and Biden's, that has to be the most bizarre talking point that I've heard yet.
Do you think you'd get the same kind of treatment if you had said something like that?
Are you kidding? Have you noticed, though, that every time Biden wanders off message, he stumbles on the truth? And now, he didn't specify what the 4 or 5 scenarios for this international crisis that he says, mark my word, is going to happen. He didn't specify what those scenarios are, but, all you have to do is review Obama's foreign policy agenda to figure out what maybe one of those scenarios would be. And Biden did say, he told his Democrat donors at the fundraiser to mark his words that those scenarios would place our country at risk in an Obama administration. And I guess we got to thank Joe for the warning.